I knew starting this project that it was going to be kind of a big ask of our audience to jump on board with this kind of different direction we decided to take from the regular content that we had been creating over the last 5 or 6 years. I was a little bit surprised though at just how controversial this idea of using the ketogenic diet to treat my schizoaffective disorder has become. I regularly read through comments and I'm surprised at the polarization that occurs or that exists in these comment sections of the videos that we're producing in this project. You know, there are some people who are really supportive and wanting to try it out themselves, which is great, but there's also quite a large subset of people who are really, really against me doing this and even suggesting that it could be an effective means of managing mental illness. And I appreciate this conversation that's happening in terms of hopefully creating balanced perspective and bringing healthy skepticism into the conversation about, you know, this experiment really is what it is of using the keto diet to treat my schizoaffective disorder. So in this video, I'm going to be responding to some of the more common themes or concerns or criticisms that are coming up in the comment section from you, our audience. So the first concern that I want to respond to or address is the idea that following the medical keto diet is too expensive and is thus inaccessible for a large amount of people. And I understand and kind of agree that some components of what I've been doing in terms of following the medical keto diet have been more costly, such as using a keto coach. That's a cost that many people can't afford, or the cost of ketone monitoring devices. But something that's important to note is that I've been kind of going all out on these things in an effort to show you, you know, as much information as possible. I'm sharing a lot of the conversations I'm having with my keto coach so that hopefully you can learn from those conversations as well and maybe not have to have your own if that's something that you can't afford. Likewise, I've been using basically every single form of keto monitoring device that you can do or you can buy. But that, again, that's just to show you the variety that is possible. You absolutely do not need to purchase all of these devices. The Keto Mojo is what we recommend, but if you're on a tight budget, you could absolutely use the cheaper option of just the urine strips as well. And I'm well aware that many people who are living with an illness like schizophrenia are experiencing levels of food insecurity. A recent meta-analysis was published that found that over 40% of people who are living with a severe mental illness, such as severe depression, bipolar disorder, or schizophrenia, were experiencing food insecurity. And so I get that that is an issue for a lot of people who may be watching this. We did a full video on how much exactly it costs me per month to follow the medical keto diet. And we also shared many places where you could cut costs further to make it a cheaper option. And I realize that that amount still is out of reach for some people, but it's important to understand that medical keto is not necessarily just buying expensive whole foods, you know, it's eating macros that will allow your body to be in ketosis. And so this can be done on an extreme budget by focusing on consuming fats such as oils or butter or cream, and focusing on cheaper options for protein and fats such as eggs, cheeses, nut butters, and then kind of filling the rest with inexpensive, low-carb vegetables. There are absolutely ways that you can still follow a medical keto diet on a budget, even if it's a very, very small budget. Something else that's maybe worth mentioning on the topic of how expensive medical keto is that if it is effective for you, it could reduce the recurring costs of medication if you're able to taper off, and hospitalizations if you no longer need that kind of support if you're in a stable place because of the medical keto diet. And, you know, just anecdotally, I really noticed a reduction in how much we were spending on food because we cut out the processed foods and eating out, which was a really big expense that we weren't super aware of before this. And so, you know, there are other ways where it actually does cut costs as well. The second kind of theme that we've experienced as criticism from our audience is around worries that following a medical keto diet and tracking and all that stuff could trigger eating disorder behaviors, or concerns that we are over-focused on weight and appearance by following the medical keto diet. Now, I think that this topic actually deserves its own video, and we're wanting to do a full video on this where we can speak with experts and whatnot on how, following a medical keto diet can impact various eating disorders such as anorexia, bulimia, binge eating disorder. But from an anecdotal experience as someone who has struggled with eating disorders, it has actually healed my relationship with food more than it has harmed. I think that through this process, I've really kind of reframed my relationship with food to be more about fueling my body in a way that is going to best serve my brain and my body. And that has actually been pretty powerful. I will admit that the tracking component of it is a little bit tricky. It's not something that I struggled with too much in the beginning because, again, I was really coming at it from a perspective of being as curious as possible about how to properly fuel my brain. And so it was interesting and it felt good to be able to track it like that. But I'm moving into a space now where maybe it's not feeling the best anymore. And I'm kind of thinking and chatting with my keto coach and whatnot about maybe moving away from the tracking element. And that's really to do with the fact that I've kind of learned what I can eat and what I can't. And I feel confident that I could do it in a more intuitive way. So that is part of the process as well. And yeah, that can be something that could be triggering for some people. But again, I've really found that reframing it as being curious about and wanting to be as intentional as possible about how I'm fueling my brain and my body has actually been of benefit. There's been countless comments in the comment section saying that I am drastically losing weight and getting drastically underweight. And just to kind of put that at bay and stop those comments, I will share with you that over the last 3.5 months, I have gained 4 pounds. I have not lost any weight, and I have actually put on weight. Near the beginning of this keto journey and metabolic health journey, we joined a gym where they did a complete body scan of us, which broke down, percentage of body fat, muscle weight, bone density weight, and all that stuff that they kind of measured to get a breakdown of what our body composition was. And so we had that done at the beginning of January. And then just the other day, we actually had it done again. So about 3.5 months later. And we found that I went up 4 pounds, and we found that I went up 4 pounds in muscle, actually. And also my body fat percentage went down by 2.5%. But again, I have not lost any weight. I have actually put on weight throughout all of this. Hopefully that quells some of the accusations that I'm going in an unhealthy route with this and losing weight. Kind of along those same lines, we've also had people expressing that since we're doing the medical keto diet, we are becoming obsessed with weight and appearance and all that stuff. And hopefully, if you actually watch our videos, you know that it's never been about that. We've never focused on that at all. And perhaps this kind of gut visceral response of, being skeptical of diets and whatnot coming from this unhealthy appearance-driven perspective is really coming from the kind of toxic diet culture that has permeated our society for the last couple decades or beyond, actually. And I get that. I think I have that a little bit too, but I think it's really important to understand that this is not a diet for weight loss or to improve our aesthetic appearance or anything. This is strictly a medical intervention where we are following a prescribed diet in order to allow our bodies to produce ketones as an alternative fuel source to glucose, which gets us into ketosis, which is a therapeutic intervention that will hopefully ameliorate our brain functioning and abate my schizophrenia symptoms. Another criticism or concern that we've seen coming up in the comments is people saying that their meds are working just fine, so why would they try this? And I understand this idea of if it's not broken, don't fix it, sort of thing. But I would urge you to think about, what side effects might you be experiencing on these psychiatric medications? And maybe if you're not experiencing that many side effects, what about the long-term side effects? A quick Google search of long-term side effects of antipsychotics was more than enough for me to be open to another option. And also maybe asking yourself the question of if you could go off your antipsychotics or your psychiatric medication, would you? And If the answer is yes, then why wouldn't you give an alternative treatment method a try that could potentially lead to you being able to reduce or maybe even go off your antipsychotic medication? And I think it's really, really important here for me to acknowledge that medication played a really, really big role in terms of allowing me to live well with schizophrenia and allowing me to manage my symptoms for long periods of time and maintain stability. But that said, there really is no denying that since starting the medical keto diet and being able to go down on my medications, I have felt the best I have felt both psychologically and physically ever. And I think that that is, a conjunction of following the medical keto diet and being in this therapeutic state of ketosis, and also reducing the antipsychotic medications that were maybe keeping me from feeling my best. I understand that the option of taking a pill every day is kind of a convenient one, or more convenient than overhauling your lifestyle to enter ketosis or to improve your metabolic health. And perhaps that convenience is why it's kind of the first line of defense that physicians and doctors prescribe instead of getting into maybe the more difficult lifestyle changes that could have similar effects. And this is a really big topic that I won't dive completely into in this video, but there should be a level of skepticism of this status quo, essentially, of just throwing medication at any mental health problem. Understanding that pharma has a lot of stake in this game in terms of lobbying for psychiatrists and doctors to throw their product, their pills, at any of these mental illness or mental health problems. There's no real big conglomeration that benefits from you changing your lifestyle to be healthier or to work on and improve your metabolic health, which is perhaps why that is not mainstream. The next criticism we've been hearing a lot of is people claiming, oh, this is the placebo effect that you're experiencing. And I can't stress this response enough that I have never been at this low a dose of antipsychotic medication without falling into psychosis or needing to be hospitalized, or both actually usually. And so sure, maybe there is a level of placebo effect going on in terms of me wanting this intervention to be successful. And maybe that increasing the level of positive response I get from it, but I have never heard of a placebo eliminating psychotic symptoms before. And I am not experiencing psychotic symptoms anymore. And important to note also that I am on 40 milligrams of my antipsychotic lorazepam, where I have been as high as 140 milligrams of that and still experiencing symptoms. And so, yeah, I just don't think the placebo effect is quite that good. Also, kind of along this theme is people saying, well, it's not just keto that's contributing to these improvements. And that's true. Following the ketogenic diet is one part of improving metabolic health, but we've been trying to focus on other things that can improve metabolic health as well, such as focusing on sleep and exercise that have also been contributing to increased wellness that I'm experiencing. The next criticism or concern that we've heard voiced is concerns around cholesterol going up when following a high-fat ketogenic diet. We actually have a whole video where we chatted about this with cardiologist and metabolic health specialist Dr. Brett Scher, so be sure to check that out. But essentially, what actually happens when following the ketogenic diet for most people is that their cholesterol levels actually go down. Now, there are a small subset of people, which are referred to as lean mass hyperresponders, where cholesterol levels do go up. Again, it's a small subset of people who follow the medical ketogenic diet, but I actually fall within that small subset, and my cholesterol has gone up. I've talked with Dr. Scher about this, and I've also talked with my own family physician about this, and he really had no concerns because essentially there are other health or biomarkers to look out for that are more indicative of health concerns than just looking at cholesterol in someone who is otherwise quite healthy. And my physician actually shared with me as well that even though my cholesterol has gone up, it's still well within acceptable levels, and so again is not really cause for concern. The next criticism or concern is people coming at us saying that it is irresponsible to be claiming that the ketogenic diet can take the place of medication, treatment, support, or therapy. And I would have to agree that, yeah, that would be pretty irresponsible, but it's a good thing we're not saying that. Using the medical keto diet needs to be a really slow and carefully monitored process where you work with your care team to figure out how it can best help you, and if it is safe or possible, and how to reduce medications if that's a goal of yours. And also, I do think that the ketogenic diet has the potential to help you get off of or reduce your psychiatric medication. But again, it's not at all something that I'm saying you can just completely swap out for, where you start the keto diet and you stop taking your medication. That has never been what I have been claiming. And for other forms or aspects of treatment, such as support systems or therapy, I will probably never stop leaning on the support people in my life, and I will also probably never stop going to therapy. These are aspects of taking care of yourself that I still fully believe in, even while following the medical ketogenic diet. And I think that they go hand in hand in terms of being facets of taking care of yourself. The next concern or criticism that we hear often is just kind of general skepticism around there not being enough scientific or empirical evidence of this diet as a means of treating mental illness yet. And we actually did a whole video again with Dr. Brett Scher, where he kind of walked us through where the science is currently around this and shared with us some of the research and trials that are currently underway. I get that there is not a strong body of science to lean on as of right now, but we are starting to see major movements in this realm. Just the other day, the first pilot study wrapped up and published their findings around using the ketogenic diet to treat mental illnesses such as bipolar disorder and schizophrenia. The individuals in this study lived with, again, either bipolar disorder or schizophrenia, were taking antipsychotic medication, and also had some sort of metabolic abnormality. So it was reported from the study that on average, the participants improved 31% on a psychiatrist's rating of mental illness known as the Clinical Global Impression Scale, with 3/4 of the group showing clinically meaningful improvement. And overall, the participants also reported better sleep and greater life satisfaction. And it's really clear that this is just the beginning of trials and studies coming out like this that are going to hopefully be able to provide more solid evidence of the effectiveness of this intervention. And the last concern or criticism that I've heard a lot that I kind of want to address is the idea that I'm not creating mental health content anymore, and more specifically, kind of the feeling of alienation. One person actually said that the content is all about you and no longer all about us. And I empathize with this. I'm sorry if it feels like I'm not creating content that applies to you anymore, or that feels as comforting or validating as previous content has. I am sorry about that. I think I just want to again clarify, though, that I am sharing through this project what I am choosing to do to improve my own mental health, physical health, and life, and overall wellness. And you are by no means obligated to do exactly what I'm doing or do what I'm doing, but I'm sharing it as a means of hopefully providing an example of how you can take steps to improve your mental health, your well-being, your life, and one path that you may be able to take if you're interested in doing something similar as well. The title of this channel is Living Well with Schizophrenia, and I've been making content for the last 5 or 6 years around how to do that while living with schizophrenia or a severe mental illness. I have, though, at several points throughout creating this content, made it clear that if I could choose to not have schizophrenia, I would choose to not. And so I think that there is tremendous value, and I have this responsibility to share this journey of a potential path to not having to experience the symptoms that have been debilitating throughout my life. The ultimate goal that I was always trying to communicate through this channel is how to live well. And it just happened to be that it was also while managing schizophrenia symptoms. But if I can live well and put those schizophrenia symptoms into remission, that's amazing. That's end goal stuff. And I have a sense of responsibility and an obligation, I feel, to share that with you all as well. So I get that change is hard, and I'm asking for a really big mind shift change in thinking about taking care of your mental health in this new way. And if your immediate reaction is, no, that's not for me, that's okay. I am not going to push it on you by any means, but I would like to ask you to think a little bit more about why you're having that strong, visceral reaction of, no, this is not for me. I was watching a podcast interview the other day with Brian Johnson, who is the billionaire who is trying to beat aging. He's trying to reverse the aging mechanism, system, whatever. And he has developed this thing he's calling the Blueprint Protocol, where he is sharing very publicly everything he's doing, all the lifestyle changes he's making to reduce the effects of aging and to, look at and examine biomarkers of, increasing his physical and mental wellness. And why I'm bringing this up is because it's very, very similar to what I am doing here on this channel now, where I am following a prescribed diet and changing aspects of my lifestyle in an effort to improve my mental and physical well-being. And so I've already shared that I was surprised at how controversial that was. And so you can imagine that he is also experiencing a high level of controversy around this. And in this interview that I was watching, he shared some insights that he has developed around perhaps why there is that level of controversy or backlash to this attempt to improve well-being for people. And now I'm totally paraphrasing here and not wording it as well as he did, but a question that he often asks people is around, if you could have AI, artificial intelligence, create a plan for you that lays out everything you need to do in order to live as well as you can, have the best quality and level of satisfaction as you've ever had, both mentally and physically, would you do that? Would you follow it? And when I heard this, my immediate reaction was, yes, of course I would. But he shared that the vast majority of people's answer to this question is no. No, I wouldn't do that. And he went on to kind of tease this response out a little bit by breaking it down into being as a result of a fear of loss of autonomy. And so, if this AI, whatever, was telling you exactly what you needed to do and you needed to just follow, and you no longer got to make decisions about if I'm going to eat this piece of broccoli or if I'm going to eat this cupcake or whatever the decisions may be in terms of how you're living your life, people were really upset and afraid of that concept of having a loss of their own autonomy in terms of being able to make these decisions for themselves. And that's understanding that the decisions they're wanting to make for themselves are probably decisions that are harming them, as compared to this AI set forth plan that has their wellness at the center of every decision or everything it's laying out. And so, yeah, that's something to think about a little bit in terms of how much value we place on our perceived sense of autonomy. And then the other thing he sort of teased out as a reason why people are averse to this is the sense of kind of inherent aversion to loss. And this has been communicated by some of our audience who feel that this diet, the ketogenic diet, is too restrictive, or that, they won't be able to indulge in their vices, whatever that may be, whether it's eating candy, whether it's drinking or smoking, or whatever these coping strategies that people have developed and tend to reach to and lean on. There's a sense of fear of losing those things. And again, even understanding that these things are deteriorating your health and your satisfaction with your well-being, both physically and mentally, there's still this very, very strong desire to be able to reach for those things and indulge in a way. I've heard from people in response to what I'm doing with following this ketogenic diet, oh, I could never do keto. I just love carbs too much. And I understand how things like that can be wrapped up in a feeling of enjoyment or a feeling of comfort. And I kind of have to wonder, and hopefully encourage you to wonder as well, if these things that we think we need for enjoyment and comfort, vices or maladaptive coping mechanisms sometimes, ever really served us in a healthy way. And I think it's worth kind of trying to think about, okay, how could I derive enjoyment and comfort and fulfillment and all these things in healthier ways that do serve the ultimate goal of improving my wellness, both physically and mentally. Back to this question that Brian Johnson asks of having AI tell you exactly what you need to do to have the best quality or best satisfaction of, physical and mental well-being. That's kind of what I'm doing right now, where I'm following a prescribed diet and I am changing aspects of my lifestyle and kind of following a little bit more of a regimented approach to this form of well-being and improving my metabolic health as a means of improving my overall wellness, both physically and especially mentally. And I think it's important for me to convey to you that doing this, I am feeling the best I have ever felt. Mentally, especially mentally, I am not experiencing symptoms of my mental illness, which have incapacitated me at times and been a really big source of struggle in my life. I am not experiencing that. And I'm also feeling really good physically. And so, yeah, I just kind of wanted to convey that it's worth it. I'm not really struggling with this sense of loss of autonomy or loss aversion. There are other ways that you can find these feelings of comfort or enjoyment or sense of autonomy, even beyond getting caught up in, having these taken away by following a medical keto diet. If anything, following this regimented keto diet and feeling the immense benefits toward my wellness has empowered me or, made me feel empowered in terms of I am deciding to commit to these lifestyle changes that are ultimately improving my quality of life. So thank you so much for watching this video, and thank you to everyone who's been following along on this keto and metabolic health project journey. And thank you also to people who have voiced concerns or criticisms. I think it's valuable to be able to have these kinds of conversations. I also just want to apologize again if this shift in content and what I'm sharing over the last several months has made you feel alienated. That has never been my intention or what I've wanted from this. I hope that me talking about this and hopefully having kind of a bit of a conversation about this will help you to maybe reflect a little bit on why there's that feeling of alienation or feelings of aversion to this project that may have come up. Again, it's okay if you're feeling aversion to this. I'm not trying to sell people on this at all, but again, I think it's worth talking about. This experience has been life-changing for me, and I've felt tremendous benefits from it in terms of managing, treating, potentially putting my schizoaffective disorder into remission. And so again, I just feel this sense of responsibility to share that with you all as well. So thank you so much again for watching. And as always, wishing you and your loved ones good health. We'll see you in the next one. Bye.